We're joined in the studio by the Broome County District Attorney, Stephen Cornwell, talking about, I think it's the most important topic of our day. And it's not limited just to Broome County, it's all across America. We see the stories, and we've seen these stories, unfortunately, now for the last few years. It's not a new problem. Unfortunately, it just seems to get worse. And Stephen Cornwell, welcome back to the program.
Thanks, Bob. Glad to be here. Wish we were speaking about something other than this, but it's a necessary part of what we do to address the problems.
So a few weeks ago, at the news conference that was held to provide more information about 7 drug arrests that were made during a series of raids around Broome County early in the day, toward the end of the news conference, I asked what I thought was the most simple of questions and got no answer, and I was shocked. The question was, how many people have died in Broome County of heroin-related causes this year? And the fact was that Broome County Sheriff David Harder did not have an answer. The Broome County Executive Deborah Preston had no answer, and you also at the time did not have an answer as to how many people, how many of our friends and neighbors had died so far this year of causes linked to opioids.
That's right. And, I made it a focus at that point that we needed a number. I was not convinced with the numbers that were being discussed, that they were accurate and, that they didn't represent the gravity of the problem that we have. And, my position is you can't wait 3 years to look at numbers for a problem that's exploding today. I mean, that would be like in the military, you're using information from 3 years ago to, go into Baghdad or Fallujah or some other hot zone at the time. And you need accurate, up-to-date intelligence in order to plan properly and, to develop a plan to really attack the problem.
Were you surprised by the lack of information? Were you as astonished? I'll say I was shocked that no numbers, no estimates would be or could be provided at that moment.
It's pretty clear, I guess, from the reaction on my face, as people have said. It was pretty clear that I did not understand how we wouldn't have an accurate accounting of the numbers, or at least some sort of a ballpark figure on the Narcan use, or some number that would be representative of the overdose deaths. There was really no information, and so that's why part of the reason I looked into it.
What I found interesting was the question wasn't how many people have died so far today or this week or this month. The question was so far this year, and 6 months into the year, I figured that somebody at the county level, whether it be the health department, maybe the county executive's office or the sheriff's office, somebody at the county level had to be tracking on a monthly basis, because the heroin crisis, the heroin epidemic, the heroin health emergency, as I see it, is nothing new. And I guess that's what surprised me, because I know from previous appearances on the program, Sheriff Harder, if the question was asked, I believe in mid-February of 2014, the question came up on the program, and he said, my recollection was, so far this year there had been, I think, 10 deaths. It wasn't, well, we have to look into it. 6 weeks into the year, he already knew that several deaths had occurred.
I don't know what happened between those two time periods. I can tell you that it certainly would seem that it's the health department's responsibility. I think they're actually charged with that duty to track the deaths. For whatever reason, it is not being done efficiently or accurately. But I've solved that problem. With the numbers that we have all been confirmed by the coroners. We have confirmed them in a variety of methods, as well as as probable overdose deaths because of the police reports, the coroners or physicians' impressions with the autopsy, preliminary toxicology screens, in many cases the final toxicology screen. And then if a screen is pending, we make a note of that. But nearly every single case that the coroners have done over the past 3 years where it was a suspected drug overdose death, it actually was confirmed then drug overdose death. So based upon all the facts that we have, it's not difficult to determine the cause of death or contributing factor to the death. So it's actually very easy to put the numbers together. Now that they're together, I can keep up with it. So we have a spreadsheet. The coroners will contact me if there is an overdose death, and we will request the police reports and any additional information, and we'll actually be using that information to investigate potential drug sales of the substance that killed somebody, and we will make those people a high priority, share that information with the police to see if they can possibly target that particular drug dealer. So there's a lot of things that we can do to address. The numbers can help us address those problems.
I was away when you made the public announcement of the numbers you had compiled, and I see the chart that you provided at that presentation. Those numbers are shocking, and the fact is, when you look at the trends, it's disturbing. And keeping in mind that with 53 total drug overdose deaths up to that point, most of them being related to heroin or opioids, each one of those involved a person, and all ages. I understand the age range generally has been from 18 to maybe 65.
Yeah, that's right. The general range is 18 to 65. So that's where the majority of the cases are. There are none over the age of 65. This trend actually means that we're on pace for 80 overdose deaths. And that gives us a rate of basically a 40.8 per 100,000. And just to show you how significant that is, the rate reported by the state comptroller in June, based upon CDC numbers, is a 9.1 per 100,000. And we're at a 40.8 is our projected rate for this year. That's got to show you there's a major, major problem. And if there's, that's based on what happened the first 8 months of the year. So if there's this uptick and increase, which we see, that rate could actually be quite a bit higher. We don't expect it to be lower. Now, to give you, by way of example, why is this important? The death rate in automobile accidents per 100,000 is about a 5. So, we're 7 times the rate of that.
Well, and it occurred to me, and I recall decades ago, before there was a real strong effort, Stop DWI effort, and an effort to encourage other safer driving habits, focusing on reckless driving and things like that. Broome County's death rate, the number of highway road fatalities, was much, much higher than it typically has been in recent years. But even then, say if there was a spike in motor vehicle related deaths, it was presented with big headlines and frequently accompanied by an outcry like how can we stop this carnage on our roadways. Unfortunately, when you think about it, if 80 people were to die on our highways in Broome County this year, or if 80 people were to be killed in shootings and stabbings, there would almost be rioting in the streets. People would be marching on City Hall or Village Hall or the county office building, demanding action from elected officials, demanding action from people in Albany or people in Washington if things were that out of hand with any other single cause of death.
I think you're right about that, especially, if you look at the homicide rate. If that would give us a homicide rate to that of the major cities with the major homicide deaths, Detroit, Chicago, St. Louis, puts us, right in the ballpark for those types of numbers. And that's, it is shocking. I think part of it is because, people still are split on this issue. I have probably just as many phone calls to my office of people saying, let them die. Let it take its course, as I do people calling and saying, we have to do something about this problem. So it's still, there's still mixed opinion on the matter, but the bottom line is it's connected with so much crime that it creates such a strain and drain on our system, on our economy, and obviously the value of a life is, very, very important. You can never understand it unless you lost somebody. So it's a very difficult thing, but I think people are coming around to understand the severity of the problem, why it's important, why all of these 53 lives need to count. And I think the community is starting to come together. The good news is I do see some good things from our end that we're doing at the DA's office. So I don't want to be a doom and gloomer. We have a lot of programs that we're going to put in place to address these issues. We've done a tremendous job so far this year. My attorneys have, and the police have. Really trying to move forward and make some strides, and we have. We've made a lot of positive strides. We see it. We feel it. So there's a lot going on, but I'm going to have some very important programs coming up.
A couple of listeners before you came in suggested, what about steering some of the money that's been confiscated in drug raids into some sort of bounty program that whether it's through the district attorney's office or the DA's office in conjunction with police, develop a program that could offer money, $1,000, whatever, that could be paid if solid information could lead to the arrest and conviction of someone who is a serious drug dealer. Is that something that could legally be done?
It's a good idea. I don't know if it can be legally done. I'd have to look into it. We do similar things, with in the drug investigations that people aren't aware of. But there are ways to entice people with information to help us.
That just isn't publicly discussed. I know that's traditionally that has been a law enforcement or investigative tool. I also have to know one law enforcement source who heard those callers earlier also let me know that in fact, doing it as the listener suggested, in fact, may not be something that it can be legally done in New York State. So, but it's an interesting prospect if there was a way to set that up in a legal way.
Sure, and we always like good ideas, but then you have to look at the legality behind them and see how they practically would work. And we're open to anything that would potentially work, but again, you have to make sure it's legal to do it. And there's a lot being done, behind the scenes. I think we have. We have a lot of intel. We could use more, and I think that would help. But
should the county set up a dedicated hotline? It gets no publicity right now, but for years the county has had an arson hotline. Still rings. I don't know how many calls they get. They don't publicize it for some reason. But is it time for Broome County to have some sort of well-publicized tip line, even though some people initially might deride it and say, well, it's just a PR move, just a stunt? It's the same thing that people currently could do by calling any police agency or detective division, or for that matter, just talking to a cop on the street. But is there something of that nature that might be explored?
So without releasing exactly what my plan is, I could tell you that I've already looked into that, and we've spent 2 months developing a very effective tip line at various different sources to do that. We're going to announce that in about 2 weeks. It's been in the works, and it's a very good anonymous way for people to report information.
So would that have a phone component or a texting component or an email component? What types of things might be utilized to allow people, to facilitate people to perhaps anonymously provide information that could save lives?
We will utilize all, let's say, social media sources and make it available. But again, we'll announce that in a couple of weeks, the details. The problem is there's various police agencies do this, but for Broome County, for the DA's office, we work with a dozen police agencies. There 6 or 7 major ones within Broome County that we work with, and there really isn't one keeper of the information. Well, there is not one keeper of the information, so which has been frustrating to us this year. So we're working on a way to compile all that information, and it's pretty much up and ready to run. We're just getting the kinks out, and we'll be announcing that. So I didn't mean to reveal it here, but that's you ask me a question, you're going to get an answer.
Another listener wanted to know, and this has been on my mind because I know if the number is ever publicized, the number will astonish and amaze. It'll be shock and awe. How many naloxone doses are being administered now in Broome County, say over the course of a typical week or a typical month?
I could tell you this. The numbers, again, this is another issue. The numbers aren't readily available. It's very simple. You just mandate that they report, and you'll have the numbers on a daily basis or weekly basis. But I can tell you that as far as going through Broome Dispatch, the number of calls year to date for overdose that were calls typed in as an overdose, we're we're over 700, closer to 800 year to date that I know of, and those are calls again that come into dispatch, and they're typed in as being an overdose or poisoning. So it gives you an idea. Obviously, the vast majority in the city of Binghamton, but they're spread out throughout the county. So
without naloxone, Narcan, the number of heroin-related deaths in Broome County now could this year be in the hundreds.
I don't think there's any question about that. You have to get the statistician to give you the number, but it's just common sense if you're administering that many. Now, some people have, administered more than once, and you'd have to account for that. It could be extrapolated, but I think we can easily say there certainly would be a significant number, greater number of deaths, if we didn't have naloxone.
The other thing, too, and people don't necessarily focus on this, a lot of the attention has been on arrests, a lot of attention has been on the number of people who have died, but there's also an actual cost to all this. Naloxone is not cheap. The company that makes it in California, like a lot of other pharmaceutical companies, has raised its prices, I believe after there was some negative publicity that they had maybe doubled prices. I think they rolled back their prices a bit, but still, for each one of those doses, there's a cost, and in some cases, agencies might be getting reimbursed by, say, state or federal governments, but still, it's an actual cost to taxpayers, regardless of whether the money to pay for all this naloxone is coming out of local budgets or out of budgets that are say, overseen in Albany or Washington.
Sure, there is a cost. There's a cost for drug treatment. There's a cost for, Narcan. There's a cost for all those things. But, there's also a huge cost for people that are in the hospital for long periods of time, due to some complication with an overdose death. People that enter the criminal justice system and, have a free lawyer and are put up at the jail at an expense to taxpayers, and all the family court issues and the family court lawyers. I mean, there's a lot on the back end, so I'm a believer on the front end that it's actually more efficient economically for the government to spend the money up front on prevention and treatment than it is, to deal with the problem down the road.
When you were here about 7 months ago, you talked about the drug treatment program that you were launching in this effort with a special phone number for people with addiction problems, or perhaps their friends or relatives could call to make arrangements for treatment outside the area. How many people now have taken advantage of that program?
A little bit more, at 175 this year. So we're not quite one a day, but it's a pretty good number. And those are people that we refer out to facilities that have open beds and openings throughout the state and the country. So we've been able to do that, and hope that helps. And I think by having people in treatment and not on the street using drugs, they're not dying, they're not committing crimes. So I think that's a good thing. They're straightening out their lives. Some
people are suggesting that it might be a good idea to set up a treatment facility here in Broome County, perhaps use the old facility in the town of Dickinson that the state has abandoned. Used to be the Broome Developmental Center. Would that be a step in the right direction?
It'd be absolutely a step in the right direction. You could put many beds in there, and you would fill them up as quickly as you could build them, but you would have people not on drugs, not dying, quite frankly not costing the money by them being in the system. And better yet, you're treating them so they become productive members of society. If treatment works, or I wouldn't waste my time doing it. We know treatment works. We see the people come back, and it works. So,
can you think of any one good reason why that facility right now off Glenwood Road isn't being used as a drug treatment facility?
No, I can't. I have an investor that would, if he could get that building, say for the cost of $1, told me that they would build a facility.
To be continued.
Yes.
Broome County District Attorney Stephen Cornwell. I should also point out, yesterday, the first thing I did before I contacted anybody to invite them on the program, I also extended an invitation to the Broome County Executive, Deborah Preston, to come in and talk about this issue, because everybody in our community is welcome to discuss this important issue. It's everyone's problem, and everyone can work to be part of the solution. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Bob.